see anything. I just wanted to be on the phone line.
Yeah.
It just wasn't working, so.
Now,
Yeah.
and the last thing you need to do
Okay,
is
we are
push it
back.
buttons when you-
We're back live. Guys, we're back live. I know there's so much to discuss. And today,
They haven't done that insurance surcharge in New York. The insurance lobbyists have already spoken.
They
okay,
have not done it,
They have.
that's
not done
okay.
it.
We can do it here.
but it was voted.
It
Well,
was,
except the property casualty doesn't cover floods, so they are not gonna see any benefit from the surcharge.
this is
Well, one thing
continuing
I
our
always ask-
conversation from previous, our
The
previous.
only thing I always ask about, things that we see online that have graphics, the map for Franklin County was wrong in terms of Senate district.
Okay, well,
But I
there
think
we,
the concept is really
the
good.
concept
and
was
we
great.
should
So
discuss
we're
it.
moving on. We're moving on to homelessness. Today in the State House.
Like Washington County.
Today in the State House is Homeless Awareness Day, and so we are turning our attention for the moment to housing and homelessness. And I think to kick it off, I think we're gonna start with Kara. Is that right? We're gonna start with Kara, and we have people with lived experience and people who run our homeless shelter behind me, who always has my back, Michael. And well, a whole range of witnesses that we will be introduced to. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for your advocacy. And Carol, why don't you start?
Sure. For the record, my name is Kara Casey. I work for the Vermont Network Against Domestic and Sexual Violence, and I am on the board of the Housing and Homelessness Alliance of Vermont. Thank you for inviting us to speak today on Homelessness Awareness Day.
Are you kidding? Critically important.
The Housing and Homelessness Alliance of Vermont, you may not have heard that name quite yet. It's a new organization that is formed between two long-standing organizations that your committee is very familiar with, the Vermont Affordable Housing Coalition and the Vermont Coalition to End Homelessness. We are a statewide membership organization, so we combined the strength and the numbers of our two coalitions into a larger statewide membership organization, working towards safe, accessible, and perpetually affordable homes in Vermont. We represent a diverse network of nonprofit affordable housing developers and managers, shelter and service providers, public housing authorities, tenants' rights advocates, and individual members, all united with the goal of creating more housing support and supporting the needs of the state's lowest and moderate income residents with opportunity, choice, and dignity, and ensuring that if homelessness does occur, it is rare, brief, and non-recurring. Our members recognize the crises that Vermonters are facing today, both a housing crisis and a homelessness crisis, and we merged these two organizations to provide one clear, strong voice moving forward and vision, and we are beginning to roll that out now. So I am here today because we actually have hired our first ever executive director. His name is Frank Knack, and he comes.
Who we have actually heard from. He has
have heard.
emailed, I believe, all of us.
Okay, yes. So he unfortunately had a snowboarding injury and was not able to be here today, so that's why I'm testifying in his stead. But you will see him around the State House, and he has been meeting with members and testifying already. He's only been here a month and connecting with folks, so we hope to have him be the face of our legislative priorities in this committee and in the State House moving forward. I'm here today just to share briefly our legislative priorities.
That's great. And before you actually launch into the priorities, I realize that almost all of you, except Michael, who's behind me, are new in our committee, and we should introduce ourselves to you. So this is Senate Economic Development, Housing and General Affairs. I'm Allison Clarkson, the Vice Chair of the committee, Majority Leader in the Senate, and here because our chair, who's up on the screen, is not feeling well today and is joining us virtually. And so she'll introduce herself last as she gets on, but Ann, why don't you?
Okay, I'm Ann Cummings. I represent Washington County and various other towns in the Washington District. I also chair the Finance Committee.
And I represent Windsor County, which is why Michael has my back.
I'm Randy Brock. I represent Franklin County and part of Grand Isle County, and I'm the Senate Minority Leader.
And I'm Wendy Harrison. I represent Wyndham County and I live in Brattleboro.
And Keisha,
Sure,
you
yes.
there?
Sorry, I can't be there in person. Keisha Ram Hinsdale from Chittenden County, and just glad we could make this work. And you all have been so patient with us as we untangle housing issues as our main priority.
Well, yeah, and our last witness was so stimulating. It was just really hard to, I think for all of us, it was pretty stimulating. So Kara, why don't you launch into the priorities for the housing, homeless, what's the name of the new, again?
Housing and Homelessness Alliance of Vermont.
Alliance, that's right. Thank you.
We of course, yeah, gone straight to an acronym, which is HAVE. So we've been using that, kind of was not our intention, but.
That's okay.
So you should have received something in your boxes and also maybe an email from Frank, but I'm also happy to share this with your committee assistant after, which is our 3 main priorities. They're really more like buckets, and I'm sure that you are all quite familiar with these priorities, but our first strategy is to accelerate the production of affordable housing. This is mainly a appropriations ask, and so we every year our membership is in support of full statutory funding for VHCD. That is a priority of ours. $10 million for the VHIP program, which I know your committee has done a lot of work on. 25 for VHFA's homeownership development program, which was previously called the Missing Middle. And 15 million for specific programs and services to support manufactured home residents. So we believe that the acceleration of affordable housing in Vermont is, what we need in order to solve both the housing crisis and the homelessness crisis. We experience a lot of the folks that we all collectively work with that are experiencing homelessness. A great barrier for them is even when they have a voucher, just finding housing, which I know you all are very familiar with that. The acceleration of production of affordable housing is very important to us. Our second strategy is reimagining emergency housing, and we're specifically talking about the general assistance emergency housing plan when we talk about this, or program when we talk about this. We want to both see that June cohort that you keep hearing about addressed and see a bridge for folks that are not able to move into more permanent housing. And then we want to kind of lift our eyes a little bit and take a look at the horizon and the future of that program. We know that there's been a lot of talk about the future of that program and have been working, meeting with the administration and others to really talk about, what does a statewide emergency housing program look like that really serves all Vermonters. So we have been taking a look at that. And that's going to be something that we're working on a lot and collaborating with the administration and you all. And then the third strategy is enhancing services and subsidies. So we really see this as an eviction prevention. So we know that there are a lot of folks that are not able to maintain their housing without support for whatever barriers they may be facing. We strongly support the SASH for All program, supported services at home. And we also know that subsidies are really important for a lot of our lower income residents to be able to afford housing. So supporting statewide place-based supportive services fund, and then increasing the Vermont rental subsidy program funding, and $2.5 million for the Vermont State Housing Authority's new eviction diversion and rental arrears program. We estimate that would cure about 389 evictions. And I know that I support a fund at the network through the HOP program that supports survivors that are either at risk of eviction or moving into new housing, and many of those folks need the support to be able to maintain their housing through subsidy, but also some of them just need that little bit of money, because they fell back on rent for whatever reason. And we're able to provide that, but we are asking for, some more support for the Vermont State Housing and Living Program.
On your day job.
Mhm.
Congratulations on the statistics that were announced this morning on Vermont Public that we have reduced the number of domestic violence homicides a bit over the course of the last year. That was exciting to hear.
Mhm.
And so hats off to you and all your work, all our work together, but you spearheaded a lot of that. So thank you. That was a good piece of news in this morning's news.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any questions for Kara before we move to additional witnesses? And Michael, we don't have you on the list, but are you wanting to talk briefly?
No, let's say there's time at the end.
There may be time, I'm. we're
Okay,
trying to
and so
track down
Kara,
the
you-
ordinance, but yeah.
I do have a question.
Yeah.
Concerning that a person
and
has,
sorry, introduce yourself.
I'm so sorry, my name is Heinz Medeiros.
Hello, Heinz.
I'll be speaking to you nice people here pretty soon.
Oh, you will, okay. Yes, there you are.
I just have a question for the young lady. Concerning, my, budget as a person that, enjoys the fruits of these programs. I wonder how a person would get behind on their rent when they should have plenty of money. And of course, the rent being the most important payment and made affordable by the programs. How could you get behind on the rent?
Yeah, so we do see folks that have subsidy getting behind on their rent. In my specific work, it's, I work with survivors of domestic and sexual violence. So when I see that, it's usually because, their abuser was financially abusing them and maybe taking the money for rent, that type of thing. When we see it, I think on a larger scale, in other populations, it could be that there was some sort of emergency. Somebody's car broke down and they're on Social Security, and so they have to use that money in order to pay to fix their car, or some other large thing has happened in their lives where they had to divert that money. I can't speak to it totally, but there's also that some people just need some support around managing budget or other things in their lives. So I think that's where also the subsidy and the services come together, where maybe somebody needs some support around managing their money or other things in their lives, and with that support they could better afford their 30% of their rent. Yeah.
Well, that leads us, I think, into our witnesses.
Yeah.
And so who would you like to introduce first? Because I'm gonna let you manage this.
Okay,
Okay, yeah.
And we have you down as John, but you go by Heinz?
my name is Heinz John Medeiros.
Heinz John, come join us.
I'm John Medeiros' son, who's since passed away.
But
A long time ago, unfortunately, and my mom too, she had the cancer,
well, come sit down. Come and sit.
I don't mind if I stand, so I can
Oh,
stand and.
I'm not sure you're able to be seen in the camera. Are we able to?
Oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't see you nice people on the camera.
Yeah, well, there are lots of people watching, so if it's okay with you to sit, the camera's right here. So
Oh, okay.
So if you don't mind sitting, that would be
I've never
great.
done this before.
thank you so much.
I stood at the last meeting, they seemed to.
Well, they're clearly got a better camera. What can I tell you? And I suppose, in all honesty, I could just lift this and put it on the Kleenex.
Oh, let's work together on this.
Okay,
I make
right.
a
So John,
suggestion, you make a suggestion, we come to a compromise. What a
Perfect.
nice chair this is. Look at that, I'm just looking at the furnishings of this beautiful place. Interesting how they added electricity, huh?
so, yeah, it is interesting. And yeah. If you would be kind enough, Heinz, to introduce yourself.
Yes, I will.
And then give
I
us
have an
your testimony.
outline here that my friend and representative of the VA hospital services helped me to prepare, because I suffer from the ADHD, and so unfortunately sometimes I get up on a tangent, But
So do some of us.
with this outline, like the president uses, and the medication I'm on, I'm sure we'll do just fine. You gotta see my YouTube video of where I was just before. That was amazing. I can't believe it was me. But I told my story, just like I'm gonna tell you nice people. So, my name is Heinz John Medeiros, but my friends call me John. You nice people are welcome to call me John.
Right.
Because I want you all to be my friend too. Because the lifestyle that I live, I think has something to do with you nice people. And I just wanted to say thank you very much. Let me tell you a little bit about my lifestyle. After I got out of the Navy, I participated in the 8A program. I didn't have to go inpatient or anything crazy like that, but I was, you know, pretty severe alcoholic. I am a pretty severe alcoholic, and lucky for me, when I was around 27 years old, I was able to stop participating in drinking and start learning about a different sort of behavior, and start learning about dealing with life without needing to be inebriated, and that some of these things weren't my fault. Like, for instance, I'm a person that suffers from ADHD. I was a kid that was put in a chair in school, and then they had sides on the desks so that the other kids couldn't bother me or I couldn't bother them. I'm not really sure. This was before the days of before the Ritalin. You know what I mean? We were those kids, you know. I went to Mascoma High School in Enfield, New Hampshire. I didn't graduate. I took my GED when I was in the 10th grade because, you know, I was kind of bored with the school thing. I got C's on my grandfather took me to the Whitefield High School, and I went in the other room and filled out, this was like 78, 79, and I filled out all the questionnaires and everything they asked me, and I filled it out and turned it into the desk, and come to find out that even though I was failing high school, when put on the spot for a GED, I got all C's. Oh, that's weird, huh? Anyways, then I went to Manchester, New Hampshire, and they gave me a test down there called the ASVAB test. And that's some kind of proficiency test that a person that wants to enter the military has to take. And you know, I got a 93 on that at 17 years old. Something was weird, you know, I was getting F's and now I'm getting 93, I'm not sure. Maybe it was that I was putting effort in towards that, you know, something that I was interested in. So I joined the Navy. You know, I was a kid that raised my right hand and gave the Pledge of Allegiance, and I love America. This is my home, you know, and I gave my time to make sure that we could all be weird. You know what I mean? We can all be free to do all these weirdo stuff, you know, which I have my opinion on, but I'm happy that we live in a place that people can be as odd as they want to without the word means when somebody gives you a hard time for doing that, prejudice or something like that. I'm 62 years old. I suffer from pretty serious COPD due to self-inflicted smoking and maybe some fumes I came in contact with along the way. You know, so my health isn't like it used to be. So I'm not a felon. I'm not a child molester. I never had to be on probation. I was just the type of person to really enjoy being a vagabond. Just kind of putting my thumb out there in the air and just kind of going with the flow. And God, the things I've seen, it's amazing. I seen a sign that says this is at the highest point on Interstate 80. I seen a sign out in California that said, caution, waves of unusual size and strength or something like that. And there were people out there surfing. And I was walking by with my boots on and my backpack on, just like looking at everything. I went to the old Las Vegas. I didn't gamble. I quit drinking like I think I said I get lost.
After you left the Navy, you said.
Yeah, after I got the Navy, I just went to Vagabond.
Where are you currently living?
I'll tell you that.
Okay,
Oh,
great. Let's
God,
get-
this whole thing and
So,
how happy I am.
I hate to say this, but we need to continue
Okay.
because we have more witnesses behind you.
Thank you very much for helping me. So then the pandemic happened. There I was, happily living, happily ever after, going to the coffee shop, going to the library, charging up my battery bank and using my laptop and enjoying, I love music. So you might find me at a McDonald's with headphones on, just enjoying all different kinds of music. And I really get excited about learning about things, and I watch documentaries and how come things are the way they are and how they all started out, you know? And I know who, and I'll tell you something weird. You'll never believe it. Who is the most wealthy religious organization on the planet? Wait till you hear this one. This will blow your mind. I got a lot of extra free time. You would think it would be the Catholic Church.
No, you wouldn't anymore.
It's the people over there in Utah, the Mormons.
Oh, the Mormons.
In that
Okay.
short amount of time that the Mormon religion was started, I'm not a,
They've started Marriott, all the Marriotts. They have huge industries. They're the wealthiest,
they
yeah.
became the wealthiest in that X amount of time. So anyways, back to what I was saying about the pandemic. So all these things that I went to normally do and see my friendly people at the McDonald's stopped letting people in because of the COVID. And then to me with the COPD, I got really scared that I was gonna die. And I wondered who would have my laptop and God only knows having my freedom taken away by being in a hospital room wouldn't be much fun for me. You know, being the butterfly that I have been. And, you know, it's kind of a sad story about the COPD too, because I'm sure I got a couple of amazing adventures left in me. You know what I mean?
I bet you do.
Yeah, well, no, I'm not going anywhere. I enjoy my music right at home. I got the greatest
That's good. Well,
internet
let's talk
connection.
about your home.
I will tell you that.
Great.
So all these places shut down. So I called the 800 number for the social welfare people, and I'm like, I got a problem. And they said, don't worry about it. We're going to take care of you. And I said, okay. And they said, show up at the Comfort Inn in White River Junction, Vermont. So I did. They put me in a room. Thank you very much, because I think that had something to do with you nice people's decision making.
It did.
Thank you. I
You're
really
welcome.
enjoyed that, and I made the very best of it because I was scared to death I was going to die. And I didn't take it as a vacation cottage. I took it as a serious place to quarantine. You know, I'm a soldier. I went to the Navy, and they like twisted my brain a little bit to make me uniform. So, you know, I do things carefully, observantly. So then I made it, because I take the inhalers. I take quite a bit of inhalers, and unfortunately they told me this is all the inhalers they can give for me, and the doses that I take are the maximums, which I'm not really that happy about. That's not a good answer. And then I quizzed them about the oxygen, and unfortunately you can over-oxygenate a person that has COPD. So I made a call to the VA 800 number, got on the benefits from the VA, very easily, got my inhalers that I needed. So I had my shelter and my health, and then the VA got me a caseworker. And then I was able to get on Social Security. I have a problem with filling out applications. That's one of my job drawbacks, is that like I can talk myself into a job, no problem. So I have to write down my name, address, and Social Security number. And they're like, well, if you can't write down your name, address, and Social Security number, what are you gonna do here? Well, you know.
Good to have help on that.
Yeah, so I got
Okay,
the
so you are now
Security.
in Comfort Inn.
No,
No.
then I got on the SNAP. Then I got on the HUD VASH program. I got my health care and physical and mental health. So I have a psychiatrist at the VA hospital. My caseworker helped me to apply for housing and to find an apartment in Springfield, Vermont, where I reside now.
Great.
At 6B Reservoir Road in Springfield, Vermont. You're welcome to write to me and ask me any questions that you might want to ask a habitual homeless person. You know, I've seen it since the 80s. Now it's the 2023s. And as this vagabond lifestyle has changed, I've seen the atmosphere of homelessness and the people participating in homelessness change. So in case you want to ask me questions, 6B Reservoir Road. This is my first apartment in 10 years. I really enjoyed being outside and living in nature, but my health and age prevents me from living that lifestyle, or I would probably be watching it snow out my tent open. No, really, when it gets to be less than 18, you know, I think that it's, you know, sane to participate in a cold weather shelter. I really appreciate cold weather shelters. But I have that kind of equipment, and I still do, that people go on to like Mount Everest and go camping in. So I feel really confident about camping with a clear mind, making that decision with the type of equipment that a person needs.
But we're glad you're on Reservoir Road.
Yeah, me too. Since then, I got it right in there. And it's so beautiful. My apartment is like a dollhouse. Like when
I'm coming to visit you
well,
this
you
summer.
should. Please do.
I'm your senator, so
Well,
I'm coming to
coffee.
visit.
Oh, I didn't even know you were a senator.
We're all senators.
Guess what I did in the Navy? Oh, you're all senators?
Yeah.
Wow, it's my first time ever being a senator.
Yeah.
Imagine that I was the lowest man on the totem pole in the VA, and I get the same type of services as the commander. I was a bosun's mate. You know what that means? That means that everything that moves, I salute, and everything that doesn't, I paint.
That's very funny.
That's the truth.
So, John,
Can I ask you just one quick?
Yeah, oh yeah.
How do you get to the VA from where you live?
Well, lucky for me, I get to do a lot of things by video
telemedicine.
telemedicine.
Okay.
This is where
Wow, I
telemedicine is
really
so
like
Okay.
that.
Is there a bus if you need?
Yeah.
No,
Okay.
unfortunately, Springfield is a kind of a rural place, but considering my needs as a renter and my a reputation as a renter, it was a blessing that I live where I live.
Okay, it sounds wonderful.
It is.
I was
Like,
just
for
curious
instance,
about it.
The landlord got a loan and had everything inside the apartment, even the drywall, the carpeting, the floors, took it all out, put it in a big dumpster outside, put in all brand new HGFC type outlets, brand new it looks like a dollhouse. It looks like
I know, you said
it's
that. I'm
like
coming to
a-
visit.
That's wonderful.
It's
That's
like
all I
an
wanted
act
to
of
tell you.
God.
Yeah, it is.
There I live.
John,
2.5
we
years
need you
now,
to
and
finish
my
because we
carpet,
have,
spotless.
that's great. It's-
My walls, spotless. I'm a soldier, you know, they taught me how to cook.
I bet you make your bed every morning too.
No, hell, no, I don't do that.
No, don't go that far. Don't go that far. Sorry.
But it's comfortable.
That's
Like,
good.
for instance, one of the things that I got from the veterans people, homeless people in Burlington, is when I moved into my apartment, they gave me a brand new full-size bed. And I kept telling them, delivered and set up. I kept telling them, I said, you know, I got money, don't worry about it. Because I got on the Social Security,
Yes.
and then I got like a back payment.
Oh, that's great.
And I was very, 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 and am still very, very, very careful with my money.
Good. So who
Good.
taught you how to manage your money?
My grandparents did, Heinz and Elena Schultz. They came from Germany before the Second World War because they could see that things were falling apart over there. And then through my clouded eyes of unfortunate mental disability, I was still able to observe these people melting into Americans, becoming Americans. We spoke English in our house. And working very hard and being very careful with money.
Great.
So I'm really happy for myself and lucky that I didn't use that money to do something that would be bad for me.
That was
Good.
great. So,
Like call my ex-wife and beg her to come back. I didn't tell her anything about the money.
that was probably a good idea. John, we need you to finish your testimony, sadly, I
Yes,
think we could
I
spend
have
time.
one more point right here.
Great.
And this is the nails. This is what really holds all this together, and what I really came here to do today, to make you nice people feel like that your money was well spent. You know, you can look at statistics all you want, but like I said, my name's John Majerus. You can look me in the eye and I'll tell you. In April 2021, I moved into my new apartment, my dollhouse. Since then, I have lived in my apartment for 2.5 years. I take a lot of pride in how I maintain my home, and I continue to pay my rent on time. I have built up my credit score from, they never heard of me before,
Right.
to a 681. I looked that up on Google. I guess that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Not that I have credit cards. I'm not playing that game. Oh, no
That's
way.
smart of you.
My money's my money, and I'm
Yeah.
from the 70s. I pay in cash. Well, except for on eBay.
Careful on eBay.
I am.
Okay.
I am. You know, you
So
ever notice?
what's next on your?
What's your
on your
what's
list?
your last point?
I just wanted everyone to know how much I appreciate what everyone has done for me, and that any money spent on me has been money well spent.
Wow.
And I show that as an example in my life, that I didn't screw up with the lump payment. I pay my rent on time. I keep constant communication with my landlord. Like I email him, say, hi, how's it going? I just wanted to say thanks again. I just wanted to tell you I was thinking about you. Every once in a while, that way if something should ever come up, they'll be like, hey, that's John Majerus, he's all right, you know what I mean? And then, like on Christmas, I wrote to them an email and I said, hey, you know, I just wanted to do something real, because they let me in after 10 years of not having any rent anywhere into this frickin' dollhouse with a brand new carpet. They didn't know me from Adam. You could say that my place looks 98% the same as it did when I moved in, because I'm very, very appreciative of what I own and where I live.
John, thank you. Is that your final point for us?
No, it isn't.
John, I think we're trying to share time with other people.
I appreciate that. Unfortunately, there's a downside to this. Similar to buying a fire extinguisher in case of emergency, I have allocated some of my resources to preparing for the worst case scenario of this beautiful dream that I am living disappearing. I've used some of my money to prepare for that. This is why it is so important that our government continues to provide assistance and funding to, in my case, the HUD-VASH program and other programs like that. And that's what I came to say, and I just want to say thank you.
Thank you.
A person that you have been in the hand of to come and tell you what I did with your money. You know what I mean?
Thank you
And
very,
we are
very
so
much.
grateful.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it.
And I am gonna come and visit you
Okay.
when I do door-to-door
I
in
never
Springfield.
You ever heard of, what's that guy's name? Thompson? My grandparents used to be friends with the governor of New Hampshire. What was that guy's name?
Eldred Thompson?
Eldred Thompson. They used to go over to his house. Isn't it odd that these German immigrants
That's great.
ended up befriending? Like there was a picture of in my grandparents' home. Well, my grandmother used to do the Republican Fund or something like that. You know, they were into that kind of thing. The Heart Fund. We had like a big plastic heart. You know,
Yeah.
that people could donate. She was really into that. And
We gotta let the next person go.
a picture of my grandmother shaking hands with Richard Nixon, some lady from Germany.
That's pretty great.
And
John, thank you.
And so
Thank you
you're
so
welcome.
much. It's lovely to have you here. Thank you. Thank you, thank you. And who,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Very
you.
nice to meet
Thank
you.
very
I
much.
think that would be, if you have time,
Uh,
that would be the last person.
Thank you for your time
And I can tell
and,
me how
and
much.
allowing me
3 or
to,
5 minutes?
so you are Catherine?
I'm Jess.
You're
Catherine-
Jess.
Catherine is not.
Catherine couldn't join
were
us.
there any
Jess,
questions you
I-
wanted to ask me?
I think at this point, we have run out of time.
Thank you,
And
we
so,
learned a lot from you.
John, that was
Thank you.
so helpful. Thank
You
you.
know where to reach.
And
Yeah,
do
right,
we
call me on the
have-
phone.
is there anybody else other than Jess? Should we end with Jess? And John, we would love your testimony. If we can arrange to have John's testimony emailed to Magali, that would be terrific.
Yeah, I think.
And this is
I
all
brought
on
one
tape,
with me,
too.
but Molly Shimko has a copy
Yeah.
too.
Okay.
So
My
she
friend
has a copy of
Dan.
it.
Hello, Dan.
My friend-
Thank you so
Oh,
much
thank
for
you.
enabling this.
Representatives of the United States government.
He's terrific. Jess, come join us.
I will be brief.
Good morning. For the record, my name is Jess Graff. I'm the director of Franklin Grand Isle Community Action, a program of CVOEO, the Champlain Valley Office of Economic Opportunity. I also serve as a co-chair to the Balance of State Continuum of Care Board, and I'm a member of the board of the Housing and Homelessness Alliance of Vermont.
Oh, great. Good board so far.
Yeah. Franklin Grand Isle Community Action runs several programs. We're one of 3 CVOEO community action programs, including HOP, Housing Opportunity Program, with which we prevent homelessness with rental arrearages, as well as end homelessness through the funding of security deposits. We're the lead agency for coordinated entry in our region. And we run homelessness response services through the form of staff who are embedded in motels and on-site motels daily, as well as the staff who's designated to encampment outreach and works with people who are experiencing unsheltered homelessness and lots of other stuff. One of the legislative priorities shared by CVOEO and the Housing and Homelessness Alliance of Vermont is to build services that meet the emergency shelter needs of Vermonters. And today I'm going to use some data from Coordinated Entry, which is statewide data held in our Homelessness Management Information System, HMIS, that's collected by lead agencies and other assessment partners in the Coordinated Entry process to hopefully illustrate both the current need as well as the successes of the systems of support that we have in place. And this is looking at data from 2023 in its entirety, so July 1 through the end of December. And during that time frame, there were 4,952 households enrolled in Coordinated Entry, totaling 8,138 individuals, including 6,019 adults and 2,108 children. Of those 500—
And that's statewide.
Statewide, yeah. Of those 563 were youth, which is that 18 to 24 range. 422 were seniors above the age of 65, and 276 were veterans. Homelessness is really complicated, has many faces. There's not one version of it. All of those individuals have distinct tales and stories. Including in Franklin County, over the last 3 years that I've served there, we've served 2 individuals who were men leaving marriages that made 6 figures and were living in their cars. Looking desperately for apartments and even the possibility of purchasing a home, but had a time in between where they had to live out of their vehicles, in one case 6 months, with ample means. So on the other hand, for the most part, we are talking about individuals who have complex needs and can be a very vulnerable population. In 2023, of those individuals enrolled in Coordinated Entry, 3,508 self-attested to having a mental health disorder, 1,167 to having a developmental disability, and 2,157 to having a physical disability, as well as 1,850 that qualified as having a chronic health condition.
And you'll get your testimony to Magali, or she may already have it.
Yes, I will.
Great, thanks.
These numbers are a baseline, and they're always an undercount. For example, they're based on self-attestation. Sometimes people with the most significant mental health disabilities do not self-attest as having them. It's also an undercount because, for the most part, it only represents people who knew about and chose to engage in Coordinated Entry. For the most part, these are individuals who are staying in emergency shelters and also in the emergency housing program run by ESD and motels, although a small percentage of them are unsheltered. It does not include many of those individuals who are served through our domestic and sexual violence shelters. They have a separate database, and historically often misses those who are unsheltered. That population is difficult for us to find, as they are often hidden in forests and living in vehicles that they have to move night by night or several times during the day. But we do know that of those enrolled in coordinated entry, 1,132 reported that they were unsheltered on the night before we assessed them. That's not a great number because for the most part, we receive the referral for coordinated entry after they've come into shelter. So most people, and it takes us about 3 days, an average of 3 days to assess somebody after we've been referred them. So for the most part, they have been sheltered. We don't have great data on how many experienced unsheltered homelessness at some point during their duration. It would be much higher. We're working on that. Coordinated entry is a process, not a program. It's a process through which we connect people to services and resources, and it is a process that works well. In 2023, 2,204, or 64% of individuals who were enrolled in coordinated entry exited into positive housing situations, including, that's positive, that's what it's called within the system, positive or permanent. They entered into lease agreements, a few of them into home ownership. These are people moving into permanent apartments, including 1,144 of them that were awarded some type of a housing subsidy. Housing subsidies are a critical tool for us in this work because about 67% of those enrolled in coordinated entry make under $1,000 a month. So that means that they're really not able to afford apartments. Even if you get close to the measure of 30%, it's out of the question. But if you're looking at just rent amounts, even then, not able to afford it without a subsidy. Housing people takes time, even though we're really good at it. With limited resources and extremely limited availability, most of those that were exited from coordinated entry in 2023 had been enrolled for between 90 days and 2 years. And of the 4,618 people that remain in coordinated entry, 24% of them have been enrolled for more than a year. That's not a measure of the duration of their homelessness, it's just a measure of their participation in the system. Often the homelessness has extended prior to that. Although there is always room for improvement, through coordinated entry, we have a process that works for many. And now more than ever, we have Vermonters that are dedicated to working to build much needed housing. Truly, we know what works, we know the solutions, and we really need time to get us there. And in the meantime,
and money. You need time and money.
Yeah, it's a jigsaw puzzle of all kinds of resources. Unfortunately, in the meantime, we need adequate emergency shelter desperately. We appreciate the administration's commitment to increasing emergency shelter programs. You've heard the Department of Children and Families talk about building 4 to 5 emergency shelters in central and southern part of the state to support the June cohort. And homelessness providers agree that more emergency shelter is a critical need. However, we have great concerns about large and temporary shelter programs targeted at only those who qualify as part of the June cohort, and would ask instead for partnerships within other divisions of the Agency of Human Services, including, for example, the Department of Mental Health, to take the lead on opening smaller, specialized emergency shelters that would provide services and support specific to people with identified needs, such as mental health or developmental disabilities, or those struggling with chronic health conditions, including substance use disorders. These populations are often most likely to struggle within our current models and often end up unsheltered. You have often been told that emergency shelters offer better supports and services than the motel programs. And I want you to know that around the state on any given day, there are dozens of supportive staff that are on site at these motels, working with individuals, providing wraparound services. And they are also many of the people that we housed. Although there's always room for improvement, the programs that provide emergency shelter, including motel rooms, are critical to thousands of Vermonters, and it's not an exaggeration to say that they save lives. Today, we have testimony from those with lived experience, and we hope that the sharing of their stories of accessing emergency shelter programs is something that you hold in your hearts as you make difficult decisions over this section about the future of these programs.
Thank you, Jess. That's
Thank you.
terrific. I guess one question I would ask the three of you, Michael and Jess and Kara, what are we doing? I think what would help the legislature also is really longitudinal data on tracking what happens to people after they enter the coordinated entry program, get housing, how long are they in that housing, where do they go, and just really to track the success or not, and so that we can begin to really understand the effects of.
We do track first time into homelessness within coordinated entry, so we could get you some numbers on how many had previously been enrolled and then were re-enrolled.
Yes, and then because I think that it's homelessness is not a stable thing. I mean, there are new people entering all the time. There are people successfully exiting and getting stable housing and staying stably housed, but there are many that aren't. And I think we need to understand just like recidivism and corrections, we need to understand both the churn. Yeah. I think the churn is, I guess.
It's a smaller number than you would think, but I'll get to it.
No, it would be helpful.
Yeah.
And one more, and then we need to pivot. Yeah.
You mentioned that in a lot of cases, people who are in the motels and elsewhere have, in fact, support services being provided by people. Where did the people come from who are providing those services?
Sometimes it's a combination of, I was going to answer the funding question. Mm-hmm. They often sit under shelters or community action programs. That's the most common place that sort of supervises and provides the support for those services. And then the funding for them is usually a combination of HOP and still ERAP, the Emergency Rental Assistance Program. We used all of the funding for VRAP, but we remain with some service dollars that we hold through 2025. And so across the state, many of the people that are on site are funded still through that remaining ERAP money through 2025 only. But
is there a coordinated oversight in terms of supervision, allocation of people, or are there multiple agencies doing multiple things?
There's multiple agencies doing multiple things, but all of those funding come through OEO, Office of Economic Opportunity. Mm-hmm. And they are amazing community partners who are really invested and just an immediate resource for us. And they lay out the goals and the services to be provided really in a very detailed way and are very supportive to make sure that there's follow through. And we have to report quarterly, of course we do, in a very detailed way on numbers served, outcomes, and other data points that they then monitor and offer technical assistance to address.
Great.
I know around here, home health provides services at the shelters and at the motel programs.
Yep. There's often home health or sometimes VCCI. Staff have been very supportive. It can really come from a variety of places. Right. Designated agencies might have clients embedded who are offering some on-site case management assistance as well. It's a jigsaw puzzle, and for the most part, the pieces fit together really well.
Which is wonderful to hear. And I have to say, we had a great illustration with John's testimony today of how support services enable lives, draw down federal dollars that now John is living on, but without those services, he wouldn't be accessing that money. So that is. That was such a great illustration of exactly. Thank you all. We are going to have to pivot onto another housing piece, but it's wonderful to have you. Thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm so excited.
Yeah. Well, thank you for all
coming. There's more to come. You're doing a lot of other things
I
today.
stay at home a lot and I mind my business.
Well, come to the State House. It's great to have you.
But, so I will remember this
Good.
fondly for a very long time.
No,
And I'm sure if I ever get any friends, I'll tell them all about it.
I'm sure you have lots of friends. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Okay, good, lot of good stuff going on.
But weekends and Mondays are
Okay,
better.
let's do Monday.
Yeah, I'm excited about everything that's happening.
Yeah, I know.
25,000 gifts.
Yeah, I know.
You're gonna have to call it 25,000.
Exactly, something that's a good idea.
25,000 opportunities
There you
to
go.
start, restart.
Absolutely, okay, good
Good to see you. Thank you for today.
Okay, hey guys, how are you?
Good. How are you today? You're gonna be around for a while?
Yeah, there will be.
It's all day. It's homelessness day.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean he'll be here all day. He's probably already-
I hope he'll be for a lot of the day.
John will be.
Yeah, oh, John's having a great time. Welcome. We have had to pivot. We've been having some incredibly interesting testimony and both stimulating with our disaster atlas. Oh my God, this incredible rebuild by design at NYU. That was really exciting and
Except
interesting.
you live in Washington County that has.
Yes, well, that is true. Yes,
But at
that-
least you
that
know
includes
now.
the two of you.
Yeah.
Good to know.
Now if I know what to do
These two,
about it.
you're in the worst county in Vermont, as you probably already,
Or the most exciting county.
or the most, and,
I have a rowboat in the backyard.
so we would love to pivot to the Vermont Housing and Conservation Board. Thank you. Thank you for being patient, and we welcome you with open arms. You know us all. Keisha is not well and she is up at home, but is listening attentively.
All right, well, good morning.
And we have some new people with you. We'd love to meet.
Yes, and I'm about to introduce them. For the record, Gus Seelig, Director for the Housing and Conservation Board.
Sorry. Oh, now we know who Kara is. She's the woman in the corner.
Sorry about that.
We-
So
Yeah,
with me today are Kara Hansen, who's our Communications Public Affairs Director, and two people who have just joined the HCB, and you will remember last year having a discussion about the Land Access Opportunity Board, and we've just been through, or the board has been through a hiring process. So I'm pleased to introduce Gene Hamilton and Ornella Figueroa, who Ornella began on the 8th. Gene doesn't actually go next Monday, but wanted to introduce them to you. Your committee played a critical role in the appropriations consideration of funding for the board, and they'll want some of your time in the near future. I know Gene has a hard, Ornella has a hard stop at 11:45, somewhere else, 11:50.
and it's Carmela with a
Ornella.
Ornella.
Yeah, it's Italian, so it's.
Yes, yeah, I just didn't, the Ella part we heard, I didn't hear the beginning. Right.
I think I was asked, as we understood it by staff, to give you the kind of report we usually give you.
Yep, an update.
And hit a little bit on flood recovery, which I'm happy to. So that's what I'm gonna do for the presentation today. And I'm not gonna talk at all, I think, about the covered slides, but I will talk about our mission in a minute, and that's a downtown Brattleboro building that reopened after being vacant for many, many years. 3-minute walk to the food co-op.
Right.
This year.
Great, yes, we met at we appreciated this fall. And you sent this to
Yes.
Magali. Great, terrific.
And I thought I'd start just with congratulations on Act 47 and talk about its impact, knowing that you're going to spend more time on those kinds of issues this year. So there was a story on public radio and crediting Act 47 with St. Johnsbury's willingness to permit the first shelter that will serve Caledonia County. That's pictured in the middle. In Senator Clarkson's district, about a year ago, the town of Hartford rejected
an expansion of the Upper Valley Havens campus, saying it was inconsistent with the character of the neighborhood, even though they were already in the neighborhood. And this is an architect's rendering of what they hope the Thousand Gifts building will look like.
25,000.
25,000 thousands and thousands. of
I know,
gifts.
Michael and I were just talking about, it's very exciting.
Yeah, and I think there was opposition even to this site, which is, there's a neighborhood above it, but not around it. But I think Act 47 made a difference. And then this building, which we hope will get under construction in Waterbury this year, the zoning board of adjustment voted 3-3 not to give it its permits. And I think when they understood the impact of Act 47 and the grounds in which they were denying the permits, they reconsidered in the building.
Is this Down Streets project?
This is
right
Down Street,
Yeah.
right
Okay,
downtown.
yeah, that has been
Yes,
struggle.
yes, yes. So
But it did get the permit from the town.
it now has its permits from the town.
Overshadowing the neighborhood behind it.
Yeah, and that came, just by the way, this site was owned by the utility district in the community, which had to have a public vote that passed overwhelmingly to give Down Street the site. And the objection from some members of the zoning board was that the building was going to be too tall, which is a pet peeve of mine when it comes to regulation. And
The whole town goes up above it, so.
all I can say to you is, having a conservation mission as well, is that if we really care about the natural areas and our agricultural lands, we need to build in our downtown and village centers wherever it's safe. And we need to build up or we will sprawl out and have an impact on those natural resources and ag resources. I want to report to you on our rental housing investments over the course of the pandemic, because you've been very supportive and generous in supporting our work. So you saw this if you were at the presentation Morris, Minter, and I made.
Yeah.
But I'll just emphasize that so far, for rental housing, we've allocated $218 million. We've leveraged another almost $400 million. Those are going into just about 1,900 homes and apartments, including 1,620 new apartments. The first 715 were online by the end of the calendar year. There'll be 400 or 500 more this year, and the balance will come online next calendar year. We expect with the remaining funds to add at least 300 homes to that overall total. So that's how the dollars are going so far. One of the things that Governor Shumlin did before he left office was to issue an executive order asking that in publicly funded housing, 15% of all the apartments be set aside for people experiencing homelessness. Across the state now, at that time we were at about 12%, we're now at 25%.
Bravo.
Bravo with some pain.
Yeah.
And I'll talk about that.
No, with huge challenges.
And somebody said to me just a while ago, and this will go to talk about the shelter system in a few minutes, if it's hard to staff a restaurant today, think of how it is to staff a facility dealing with people who are having the worst day or the worst year of their lives.
Right.
It's really difficult, but we're working on it. Over the same time period, we helped 238 households into become shared equity homeowners. Some of that has been by building new, but the way we do shared equity also means that we recycle homes from one generation of home buyers to the next. So the home in Brookline, Vermont, quintessential Vermont, we put $12,000 into it about 1992, when it cost maybe $70,000, $75,000. First family lived there. There was a divorce when the wife remarried. She said, time to move on. It was sold then to a single mom with 3 kids. She lived there for about 5 years, was able to buy it affordably. She got remarried, she moved on, both of them to conventional home ownership. Third family moved in, headed by a local realtor who couldn't afford anything that area. And she lived there for 12 or 15 years and then returned to the rental market. The fourth family is now in there. So a $12,000 investment 30 years ago has launched, 3 families into home ownership, and we haven't had to put more money into that home because of the way that we do shared appreciation, which is to say, some of the appreciation stays with the property and is recycled to the next homeowner. One of the interesting things, when the realtor sold the property, there had actually been a decline in value. But because she had bought in at about $110,000, the property had gone down from like 180 to 150. She suffered no loss herself. Obviously, not as good a deal as the conventional home ownership market, but I think that's a wise use of recycling the public subsidy. One of the things we began with the one-time funding we approved has been to support farm workers across our community. Programs being carried out by the Champlain Housing Trust. So far, 37 farms have participated with housing for 139 farm workers. From the beginning of our program, we've had a relationship with the Center for Independent Living, and again, 224 households have been able to get help with bathroom modifications or ramps. And if you think about and so we've probably done something like 2,000 of these homes. I think that even 10 or 15% of those folks would have ended up in a nursing home because they couldn't get in and out of their own home. That's a huge savings to the public purse.
And there's an effort, I know, in the House also to expand home modifications and to add a tax credit for this. Have you seen Mary Catherine Stone's bill?
I have not.
I'll ask her to connect with you. She's presenting actually to Ways and Means today. So,
Gus, do you know where VCIL is? Because I was by their building a few weeks ago and they're not there.
I think they're operating remotely. I think they've been operating.
Mary Rose testified the other day and she's still remote. Yeah.
This is something that just goes back to our roots, which we call preservation of housing. These are also projects that now have a name, which is NOAA, Naturally Occurring Affordable Housing. And the building you're seeing on the left is the old hospital in St. Johnsbury that had been converted to housing quite some time ago, mostly occupied by elderly people. And the seller went to Rural Edge and said, if I sell this property on the open market, the rents are going to go from where they are up at least $500 or $600 a month. Will you buy it so that the residents are not displaced? And they came to us for some help, and it's preserved. And when you think about the problems we're having with homelessness, although we have done less of this in recent years than we did in our early years, I think it's really important that we not lose what is affordable housing stuff.
That's great.
The property in Dorset is what is called in real estate terms a Class B property that can attract investment from outside Vermont, 99 units. And when I ran with Kevin Dorn, who used to be the city manager in South Burlington, and with whom we'd had some policy differences over many years, going back to his years with the home builders and then with the Commerce Agency, he said, did you help with that? That was really important because we have lots of new Americans living there and just lots of working folks. And this is a property where the rents are between $1,000 and $1,300 a month, and would easily, with a different ownership, would have been $1,800 a month, $2,000 a month in that market. So we think preservation is an important thing for all of us to be thinking about as well. Champlain Housing Trust bought the property on the right. This slide is just to give you a sense of housing production as units are coming online. The building in Hartford will open in April. The old Bennington High School has been vacant for probably 25 years, maybe longer, and it should get under construction. It still has the financing which to fill with the market's tax credits because it's a mixed-use development that's going to include senior center and lots of other services along with about 30 apartments, but it should be underway, we hope, summer or fall.
Sorry, that's the old Burlington what?
Bennington High School.
Man, I was gonna say Burlington is.
And it's a beautiful building and
Yeah,
really
why
good
did they
project.
leave it in the first place?
I think it was too small for the high school.
Oh, so it just outgrew it.
It's that, brick one
It's the
on the
red
left.
brick house, yeah, right.
Yeah, we've done a lot of conversion of hotels to housing.
13?
I think we're up to 13.
Yeah,
now.
but-
You know, like Oregon created a program called Project Turnkey, and when I inquired from some colleagues in Oregon, how much have you done so far? They said 18 hotels. So we've, on a per capita basis,
You're
every
right up
time
there.
we find an opportunity, we're taking it on.
Well, this is part of why we don't do as badly on all the statistics about homelessness because we're second in the country per capita, but we're also like top or in the top 2 or 3 on how we take care of our homeless. Housing them is a key piece of that.
Well, we rehoused over 4,000 households.
We did.
And I guess just a contrast, I know that I don't think there's any committee room I can sit in where anybody would say to me, you haven't done enough yet, and that would be true. Our housing problems have gotten a lot worse. There's a slide not in this thing that I showed in the December presentation. Housing construction has declined steadily over 4 decades, and so we're not keeping up. Just a word about the Brandburn apartments in South Burlington. That's something we call permanent supportive housing. We originally acquired it as an isolation facility, which Champlain Housing Trust did for people with COVID during the pandemic. And now that that's not needed, it's been turned into 20 units of what we call permanent supportive housing. It doesn't mean you have to stay there for all of your life, but to the extent you need support, it'll be there for you.
So it's owned units.
It's
not rented units, right?
No, this is
all
rental.
rental.
It was about a 34-room motel. It's
Motel.
now 20 apartments.
Right.
Can I just ask a quick
Yeah.
question? Is there a model that is replicable for supportive housing? Because I'm thinking this is probably like Great River Terrace in Brattleboro, but is there something that we can know like the scope of, the price of, and we can just say we want 20 of these and we'll know what it costs?
I'm going to say 2 different things.
Okay.
The first is every piece of real estate is different,
Yeah, I know.
right? So when you want to convert a building,
Yeah.
you know, we're in the midst of negotiations, not we, Down Street is, for a hotel here in central Vermont too. And I'm asking, well, why not the building here in Montpelier up your way on North
I
Grove
was
Street?
gonna ask if you could do anything with that.
And what Down Street would tell you is we looked at it and it's a wreck of a building. It will
Yeah.
need much more rehab than the building they're looking at in Barry. And so whether you're a for-profit developer or a non-profit, you're always trying to manage risk. And, you know, so I can't tell you anytime you want to do a conversion, what kind of shape is it in? Where do you need to get it to? So that what I say to my staff is, at the end of the day, if somebody you love has to live there, are you going to be okay with that? And that's, you know, and so some properties need not a lot. The easiest hotel conversions have been suites because they already have kitchens in them. And the harder ones, you know, at the beginning of the pandemic, there was a lower cost conversion. As time went on, you know, one of the problems with the negotiations of this other property in central Vermont is the fellow is getting so much money from the state of Vermont that he's saying, why would I sell it for this amount when I'm going to net 800,000 or $1 million this year?
And that's not the legislature. But so can I ask
So
you,
there's not a cookie cutter.
how about,
But the other end of the equation is just, do we have a service provider who can staff it?
yes.
And that is that's toughest.
So the supportive services maybe per unit cost, that might be helpful to have that. If you ever come across,
The other thing I'm going to say to you is our successes have been with properties of 20 units or less.
okay,
When we've done larger projects, we have really struggled with the staffing of them and with the concentration of lots of people with high levels of acuity. And, I think that speaks to the reality that you're all well aware of. That I think our mental health agency vacancies are something like 20%.
Yeah.
And
Allison,
Yep, Keisha, sorry.
Can I-
Oh, I'm sorry, you're way up in
It's
the
okay.
corner.
no, it's okay. First of all, I don't know if you can see us, but here's Mira eating a grilled cheese and tomato soup for the first time. Say
Oh my
hi.
God. That's a milestone.
Yeah.
Love that high chair. Love the high chair.
Yes. Thank you, Senate, for the high chair. I just wanted to make sure, I think we're a little bit more truncated in our overall schedule to get this bill out than I thought we would be. So I don't know if I've had a chance to tell Gus, we're looking at next week to start drafting in earnest. So I wanted to make sure he spoke to appeals issues, which I know he's had strong feelings about. Was that on there? Okay.
We're hoping we get to, so as soon as Gus finishes this slideshow, we're gonna launch into that question.
Great. Okay.
Pick up the pace. Just want to tell you, because you'll be dealing with Budget Adjustment Act in the not too distant future, that we have a large pipeline. What I told the House Appropriations Committee was that we will not be able to meet all the project demand that will come to us in this fiscal year, based on available resources. It will probably take another $20 million to do that. And these are just some of the opportunities that we know will come this year or next. We expect the project in Middlebury, which Middlebury College has played a role in making available, will be here this year. The Highgate Village Housing Center may be next year. And next year, already we have gotten signals for 600 units of rental housing, 120 units housing preservation, home ownership, and a need for more shelter beds, and a desire to continue the farm worker housing program. And again, all over the state, we're seeing communities and individuals. I think NRG Systems in Heinsberg is donating land for a new neighborhood that's pretty much in that village. Up in the Northeast Kingdom, the Greensboro School is a project that will come to us soon. A lot of discussion about Brattleboro High School, which is currently.
Oh my God, that's a stunning building.
And we think this is the year that we'll get an application for it.
It's wonderful.
You asked that we talk about flood resilience.
Yep.
You all visited Barry, so I'm not going to spend time on that. But a few weeks before you visited, the public radio program Marketplace had a bit on this site in Northfield. And there used to be 7 houses that were flooded, Tropical Storm Irene. They were all subject to the buyout, and that we participated in. And it performed during the July flooding the way you hoped it would.
Great.
So I know you're not focused on our conservation mission, but
we are actually. We went down and saw, Melrose.
It's called Melrose.
I know you are as individuals, and yet, but there is a connection between the two. And
yeah,
well, there's a connection between less housing and flood restoration.
Yes. And so, right now in Brattleboro, we're in the midst of a 5-acre restoration project to enhance the floodplain.
We saw that project too.
Yeah. So anyway, these are our statutory purposes, and again, economic vitality, quality of life. I won't talk about how that's impacted Brattleboro, but you see the pictures. That Co-op building was a great addition to the downtown. Our historic preservation mission led us to working with the Latches Theater, which provides great performing arts, and recent farm conservation project in that area. I'm not going to spend time on our conservation programs at any or other programs in any length today, simply to make you aware of them. But I did want to tell one story about AmeriCorps, and I think it also goes to our commitment to equity. About 20 years ago, a group of Dartmouth students were AmeriCorps volunteers, and they got the idea that there ought to be more mentoring at affordable housing sites. And they actually created a program called the DREAM program, created a nonprofit, and they've been going ever since. We helped them acquire a camp, so there'd be a summer camp for kids to go to. This year we helped them acquire an island in the lake where the camp is. A few weeks ago, our board approved the purchase over in Benson Orwell of the old Boy Scout camp. The state had declined to buy it as a state park.
Sunrise.
Camp Sunrise.
Oh, yes, our boys went there.
It is now going to be Camp Outright, and Outright Vermont is the owner, and it'll be a safe place for LGBTQ.
We hope the snakes in the outhouse have disappeared.
Oh,
they make it fun.
But the
Conservation camp.
The interesting story I want to tell you is not just that this is a first in the nation project, but a fellow named Dana heads up Outright Vermont, and I called him that afternoon to tell him of the board's decision. And I said, you know, we have this AmeriCorps program, maybe we could do our service day helping to get the camp ready. And he said, oh, I meant to say in my presentation, really articulate that. My first job out of college was as an AmeriCorps volunteer with your program at the Committee on Temporary Shelter. So,
that's great.
That's wonderful.
so
What goes around comes around.
yes.
Comes around, goes around, whichever way it works.
So, you know, if you ask why are we investing in a program like AmeriCorps, it goes to the governor's priority of, you know, supporting the next generation into our workforce and giving them a sense of community service. Something I will not dwell on today is the Rural Economic Development Initiative. But these are two examples of work we do helping businesses or communities access capital in small communities. And so far, we've spent $800,000 on this program, and it has netted various businesses and programs and projects in rural communities $18 million, over almost $19 million. And so we think that that's, again, going to our mission statement of economic vitality for rural communities. We think that's really a vital program.
So sometime you'll have to go into that in more depth, so that we can appreciate how $800,000 leverages $18 million in grants.
Basically providing grant writing support to communities or local groups
so it's
that
technical
that
assistance.
would never be able to compete.
Okay, that makes sense. So it's not, right, it's what it's enabled, not necessarily right.
You all know this, but a fundamental part of our mission is to permanently protect the investments we make. That happened at Northgate Apartments 30-some years ago, where a mixed income neighborhood was saved. It was close to the lake in the north end of Burlington. It was right for condominium construction. We invested a little under $3 million in the biggest rental development in the state of Vermont. It was a $22 million deal altogether. If those investments were time limited to replace Northgate today, because it's been more than 20 years,
Yes, I can.
it would be $150 million plus if you could find a site to build 336 apartments. And contrast that with the decision of the Bove family that a year ago they said they would not displace anybody, and they changed their minds.
They're going to build next door shelter on 50th Street.
I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because I want to hear the chair's wishes to talk some about permitting, but a project we're bringing to our board next week, Senator Cummings, is the old offices of Washington County Mental Health on Wheaton Street that they want to convert to apartments, and they're also going to carve off an acre for 4 modular homes, probably from Huntington Homes. So there'll be some home ownership and some rental.
And that, I've been told, will be the test of the city's commitment to housing.
I'm sure it will.
And brand new one, we just had Zeke in, so.
It's just up from Jim Jeffers' old house.
Oh.
Last thing I want to say, because Ted Brady tells me I don't give TIF districts enough credit, is we've been able to do a lot of good work in Franklin County, and specifically in St. Albans, because of the TIF district, but also a city manager who may be the least risk-averse city manager of any I've ever met.
Dominic is still there?
He is still there, and he's a risk taker. We built two buildings right across from City Hall, and we have two other buildings, one by Cathedral Square and one with a private developer happening. I'm not gonna spend time on the workforce because I want to be mindful of time and get to regulatory reform. So the three things I talked about at the, all at the session in December is the
Right.
need to expedite the appeals process, the need for A&R to expedite the corrective action plan process, and to find any way that you can, as you work through the bills, to enhance height and therefore allow density. And what I want to remind you of is the building on Canal Street in Winooski, which is home to veterans, is 28 apartments on a fifth of an acre. So that's what 100 units an acre, more than 100 units an acre looks like, and I think it looks pretty good.
If you were in New York, it would be triple that.
Yeah.
So,
In Windsor, the Historic Preservation Community decided they did not like the height of the proposed building next to the diner, and we lost the story. We're still gonna build 25 units, but we could have built 30. So as you work on the permitting legislation, anything you can do in our built areas. As to appeals, my experience tells me that whenever we get an appeal, and Senator Clarkston knows this from her home community better than anybody, it is expensive to go to court, and it takes a long time. So a model that we heard about, and that folks on the other side of the river adopted a year or so ago, was something called the Housing Board of Appeals. And I ran into somebody from New Hampshire at a conference in October, and I said, I know it's new, how's it going so far? And he said, it's working exactly the way we hoped. You don't need a lawyer. The board is bound to make its decisions within 180 days. So far, they've always met that deadline. They've had 3 cases appealed from the board to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court's upheld the board on all 4 occasions. So I know that there are other proposals for how to expedite appeals, but I think that this is a model that you may want to take a look at.
and I know you and Keisha have spoken about it, we've spoken about it. We're gonna need to, if we're gonna include that in our bill, which I think we're hoping to, we need a fuller, we need to look at what it costs, the number of staff. Because the challenge is it requires staff and
Yes.
a fairly good size appropriation.
The thing that concerned me, and maybe I misunderstood with New Hampshire, was you could choose to go to the Supreme Court
Yes, that's
or
right.
to the Housing Board. So given our folks around here who just like, people that may just want to drag it out, they go to the Supreme Court.
They go to court, yes. I would suggest that that's something we might not want to emulate from New
Yes.
Hampshire. We'd say, and this is an appeal only for local permits. It doesn't get into appeals or decisions of Act 250 or A&R. This is about local appeals.
I was curious why, Gus, I was curious why, because maybe then we'd be replacing the environmental court, but not the NRB. So,
Right.
if we just said you can't go to the Supreme Court, we'd be doing the same thing now without having to start a new appeals board. If you went,
It may be that there's a different way at this. What I have found in my own work is that most of the appeals, not all, are appeals of local permits by neighbors, and
That's what's ours. And we
and
did all sorts of things.
and so anytime you go to court, you hire lawyers, and the pressure is on you to settle. The building I showed you in Windsor a few minutes ago, the local folks could have fought and said, we've got the right to go another story. but that's the same group that was also in the legal fight for the project in Putney. And they didn't think they could sustain two court battles at the same time. So I'm not saying this is the only answer, Madam Chair. I'm just saying that
It's an answer, and we just need to explore it more fully.
I think we're asking New Hampshire, but Gus, I think someone on your team would need to get us a flow chart of what you're envisioning and how it would save time. Because I'm still stuck on what it would replace and where it would cut out time.
Right now, Madam Chair, folks in Putney went to the environmental court. And even though their case
Not folks, this one person.
And this gets to another question of how much democracy gets to be too much democracy. And what they were appealing was a project in a designated area, which you establish by first a democratic process at the local level, and then that's approved by the Regional Planning Commission, which is another democratically controlled institution, and then approved at the state level, where there's still somebody can go in and say, please don't approve this. So you've gotten 3 levels of approval for the designation, and yet somebody can still take the project to court. And this person initially went pro se. That still required the developer to hire lawyers and go to court. They got a pretty quick decision because it was a summary judgment, and that meant 9 months to get a quick decision.
So we have options there, right? We could say you can't appeal that, I suppose, is one option. Are you saying, does the Housing Appeals Board, they have to hear things in 90 days? I mean, is the issue that we can't tell the judiciary what to do, but we could tell the Housing Appeals Board you have to do it in a certain amount of time?
That's my understanding, Madam Chair, is the Housing Appeals Board is mandated to make all their decisions within 180 days.
Within 180 days.
They are judges.
But why are we not able to do that at all with the judiciary, set expectations?
They get really touched.
I don't think we are, because, well, some people think we aren't because they're the other branch of government,
Yeah,
but if we establish a board, the legislature establishes the board, then we can have limits and constraints on what they do.
The board doesn't
Right, no, I
have just judges on it. My understanding was these were just citizens.
Yeah.
Then the judiciary doesn't get into it at all because we're not telling them what they.
Okay.
So I think we're at time. I know other people have other things to do. Gus, do you want to do a summary of where you are? And I think it would be great if we could get sort of expectation size, sort of a budget of what you're looking at in a flow chart, which is, how you envision these appeals going. That would be really helpful for us because we're going to have to be drafting this ASAP.
Okay. The expert on this is a fellow named Ben Frost of the New Hampshire Housing Finance Agency.
So we should get Ben in, maybe we could get Ben in tomorrow.
He's coming in tomorrow.
Oh, that's right.
See, she's ahead of us.
Well, that was quick.
He is coming in tomorrow. I'm sorry. I knew that. 9:00. Now that visual of Ben Frost, great.
And again, I am not, the be-all expert on permitting, but I'm happy to try to be helpful here and get a flow chart. He's actually going to be testifying in the other body this afternoon. It's somebody like Kathy Beyer.
We asked Kathy to do one on the permitting time, on the time frame of permitting and cost.
Yeah. So she will give a good testimony, and you may, for a variety of reasons, end up with a different approach to cutting the time. My main message is going to court is very expensive.
We hear that.
Very slow. So the impact in Putney by the 2-year delay and using Act 47, they increased the size from 24 to 25 units.
Yeah.
And then the appellant has now taken them back to court, appealing the jurisdictional opinion of the Natural Resources Board.
Right.
So that's why I say we need something different. And if what you do is to say it's by right in designated areas, that may be another way at
Right.
beginning to solve
I think that may be the simplest.
it.
Yes.
But
Yeah,
But-
that's a good idea.
but we have been pretty resistant to telling citizens in Vermont that they don't have appeal rights.
Yep.
Yes,
Right.
yes, we have,
That-
but there are consequences to that,
But-
and we did do by right.
And we can also limit the number. I mean, I think we
Yeah,
just,
you can appeal once.
right, and numbers of people, numbers of times, et cetera. Gus, thank you.
Okay.
Is there something else you'd like to end with?
I'm just flipping through and, we are working on the shelter system. We're taking testimony.
So I encourage everybody to look at Gus's full testimony, which is
And,
online.
I know you have lots else and you only meet for half a day, all day, but I'm happy to come back if,
Thank you.
as you work on the shelter system. We're working on infill and manufactured home communities. Again, there's a new product called a Zero Energy Ready mobile home. Just delivered 7 of them to Bennington.
Is that
I
better
was
than,
just writing to you about them, because I knew I wouldn't have time to talk about it.
The
So-
They're amazing.
are they better than Vermont's? They're less expensive than?
They're less expensive than Vermont.
Because Vermont's have turned out to be a little more expensive than we were hoping.
They're worth a field trip.
Everything is more expensive than we hoped. But we are hoping that Tri-Park will get 26 of them to help the people who actually live in a flood.
Yeah.
And what are they
Yep.
called again?
Zero Energy Ready homes.
Where is, they're not, are they, is that name up there? I
They're
don't
made
see it.
in New York,
Oh, Zero Energy, and where are they made
and they're
in New York?
modular. They're,
They're actually a mobile home rather than a modular home, meaning they are on a chassis.
They
okay,
come
As
on it.
opposed to what Vermont produces is a modular home that gets delivered on a truck with a crane.
okay, but they also have ones where there's two,
They have
Paths
double
to
wides,
it.
yes.
Right.
Yes.
and they have 5
Well,
bedrooms,
Once
3
you build,
baths.
once you build these units, you can stack them and you can do a variety of things.
Well, the
mean-
mobile homes, I'm not sure you can, the modular homes.
The modular homes you can.
If you walk inside a double wide or one of the modulars in Barry, until you touch the wall and see what it's made out of, the layout and everything is exactly the same. There.
And these
With a
finish
garden,
and
bathroom,
fixtures, yeah,
and, yeah.
and these are healthy too.
And where are these zero, what's the next name?
Zero energy.
Zero Energy,
Well,
actually.
zero energy ready, so if you put solar on the roof, then they're zero net, or they can be zero net.
Assuming you've got
If
the
you
right
add
site,
solar.
you have solar and you have the right.
You need the
site.
right site.
Yes, oh yeah.
Thank you, Gus,
Okay,
and
Thank you.
more to follow.
So-
Thank you very much.
okay.
Well,
Really
the-
appreciate it.